Hi, and welcome back to It's Not Rocket Science, 5 questions over coffee. On this occasion, here is my coffee in my mug here. I'm joined by Adam Warner. Adam is a CTO coach helping uh, executive thinking within those people who are technical leaders. So, Adam, welcome to It's Not Rocket Science, 5 questions over coffee.
Thanks so much. Good to have me. Good to have you here. Thanks very much.
So Adam, let's start by just exploring exactly who it is you help. What are the sort of people that are reaching out to you and asking for your help as a CTO coach?
Yeah, sure. So typically it's the CTO, the chief technology officer, or the most senior technology leader in a company if they aren't called the CTO. They could be anywhere from startup, scale up, large enterprises, and they're typically someone who's transitioned, as you said, from being a hands-on software engineer of some sort, VP engineering, into that senior leadership role. And it can be from almost any vertical. They're often incredibly skilled technically, but often feel unprepared for the broader executive responsibilities that they now find themselves with at the CTO level. So often it's around, aligning tech with business goals, building up their teams, and then they often face challenges in securing buy-in from the other executives and then building that sort of leadership presence at the executive and board level.
So tell me, what are the sort of problems that these people have faced before they get in an expert like you involved? In terms of both the business issues and also sometimes some of those more soft skills, the persuasion, the ability to influence.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. So I think there's a couple of things that people face, and one of them is um, the gap between the technical expertise and the strategic leadership. They're sort of trying to cross this, what I call the CTO chasm, really. And it's really about moving from being an individual contributor to being working through delegation. It's going from the tactical approach to the strategic approach. And at the same time, migrating that view from the sort of execution-oriented perspective to the vision-oriented perspective. And the kind of feelings that people come to me with is sort of frustration. Sometimes it's burnout. Sometimes it's stalled career growth. And sometimes I find them with a sort of firefighting every day. They're struggling to get time to think strategically, sort of lurching from issue to issue, and often struggling to sort of step back and give themselves space and time to lead proactively because they're constantly in execution mode rather than thinking long term. And without the right guidance, people can make this transition. It can take years of trial and error. But my role really is to help them cross that, the CTO chasm, as I call it, by accelerating that process of trying to figure out all of those things together and get them all to line up. A bit like getting all of the tumblers in a lock to line up at once so you can move to that next level and act strategically.
So, Adam, you must have one valuable piece of advice or one valuable piece of offering that you can give to people at the moment. What is that offer that you give?
I've got three, actually. One of the simplest and most powerful things a CTO can do, I think, is to implement a sort of a weekly strategic or reflection session. So just setting aside 30 minutes every week to just analyze what are the biggest strategic risks I face? How well is my engineering team aligned with business goals? Where am I spending my time? So just 30 minutes a week set aside for yourself to reflect and figure out where you're going. That's something that's completely free, completely straightforward. And everybody can implement that straight away to strong effect. I also offer a free 30-minute introduction call with every CTO who'd like to have a chat with me. And I take the approach of helping first. So it's a good way to get some instant feedback on the current challenges and some of the other options that are available to you in terms of the different directions you could go in. And then lastly, I also host a podcast, as you mentioned at the beginning, called the CTO Playbook. That's aimed primarily at helping CTOs excel in their role. Taking a playbook in each episode, often with a guest speaker who's an absolute expert in their area that they work in, their topic. And you can find that podcast by searching for the CTO Playbook, on your favorite podcast platform or by visiting my website, sonova.tech/podcast.
So we're gonna put a link to those things that Adam's just mentioned in our free vault, which is systemize.me/free-stuff. So if you go to systemize.me, if you didn't catch any of that, go to systemize.me-free-stuff. I'll put that as well into the notes. You can capture all those valuable free offers that Adam just offered you there. So we'll have those in our show notes. Adam, I'm going to sort of try and sort of dive in a little bit to the sort of acumen behind the CTO coach here. There must have been a book, a program, a life experience, something which brought you to where you are today. What was it that sort of took you on the journey? What ended up sort of becoming Adam the CTO coach, and what was it that inspired that?
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, I became a founder of a startup, a co-founder, I should say, so starting alongside Stephen, who's the founder of Satago. And I sort of went through that role, figuring things out the hard way. Most of the time, I had some good mentors along the way. We were members of seed camps. We had access to a couple of great people from there. But it was that sort of step of first of all, figuring out all the challenges I had in front of me and working out step by step, sort of using the brute force approach to get through it. And I think really the thing that brought it home is this idea of stopping thinking like an engineer and beginning to think like a business leader. And there was really two areas there. So one was this transition of trying to figure out a lot of things at once, which you already mentioned, crossing the CTO chasm. And the other one was really closely related to that, which is actually from the Patrick Lencioni book on the 5 dysfunctions of a team, which is that you got to act in your first team. And in that case, as a CTO, that's the executive team. It isn't the engineering team. So that's another one of those key transitions that once I figured out and got my head around it, became a lot easier to understand what was expected of me. And in terms of mindset shift, there was also a book that really helped, which I'd been recommended years earlier, but really came into its own. And that's a book called Turn the Ship Around by David L. Marquette. And the reason it's so useful is because it represents that mindset shift to the leader, to then stop that process of change across the entire team as well as in yourself.
Brilliant. Look, Adam, it's been me asking the questions up until now, and I guess one of the things that you must be thinking is, well, there's such an obvious question. Why isn't he asked it? And so, therefore, I am going to immediately turn that over to you and say, what is that obvious question that you wish I had asked you at this stage? And obviously, as it will be your question, you'll need to answer it for us. So, what's the obvious question that I haven't asked you up until now?
So the obvious question is, why don't more CTOs get coaching?
Why doesn't everybody get more coaching, Adam? I think it's not a problem limited to CTOs. I often wonder why it is that people are somehow resistant to the whole idea of having somebody that they can sort of rely on and ask and be outside of a situation to just say, do you know, I just want an ear.
And a lot of the times, I think people do rely on their immediate leader. They have a mentor. A lot of people have somebody. And in other cases, people go to coaching and training courses. But I think with CTOs, there's a particular challenge in that I think many CEOs get coaching. And in fact, I think if most CTOs turn around to if most CTOs turn around to the CEO and say, do you get coaching? The answer would probably be yes. And that's also true for many CFOs and COOs. So there's a lack of awareness that CTOs don't really realize it's an option. Often CTOs being classed as a delivery role rather than an executive role. And so it's just not that common. There's not many people who talk about CTO coaching. That's one thing. So I think the other reason is applicability. I think there's a lot of executive coaches out there, and they're quite generic in terms of the backgrounds that they expect somebody to have. And it doesn't always apply or resonate particularly well with the CTO. There's a difference in the course you take through a company from engineering than if you come, for example, sales or marketing, where you've got a lot more focus and emphasis on, for example, communication. I think training courses fill some of this gap. I think mentors can really help. But mentors can, they can be a bit hit and miss based on the right kinds of experience. The CTO role might be only 40 years old, but it's a very broad church in terms of the different kinds of roles that CTO covers. So my approach for coaching is slightly different. I basically blend together coaching, teaching, and mentoring. And so coaching is that, the blockers, the fears, the confidence, in some cases, the imposter syndrome. Teaching is the frameworks and playbooks that you haven't been previously exposed to or had experience in. And mentoring is kind of twofold mentoring. One is holding people to account based on promises and expectations. But the other part is also being able to bounce ideas off somebody with a lot more experience and background. And, what are the unexpected side effects? What would be the consequences that I can't foresee coming from those kinds of things? And so having that approach, really, I think a lot of CTOs just don't realize that coaching is available and out there. There aren't that many CTO coaches who specifically focus on this.
Brilliant. Adam, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us and talking us through that. I'm just going to leave one final link for people. If you would like to get on to the mailing list that we send out an email about once a week, and we just let people know about who's coming up on the podcast and other things that we're thinking about at the moment. It contains 2 or 3 things that we're thinking about, 2 or 3 things that are common and going on in the world, plus some humor. We try and inject some humor into every newsletter because we think the world should be a brighter, bubblier place. But if you'd like to get onto that newsletter list, come on to systemize.me/subscribe. That's systemize.me/subscribe. Adam, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us. Really appreciate it. I hope to hear in the future how many more people get their coaching from the CTO background and go on to become successful executives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stuart. Great to have you.
Okay.